Guys, I want to catch up on what happened at the Critics' Choice Awards tonight. I'm sure it was totally normal and went according to plan.
The critic choice is Amelia Perez. And the award goes to John M. Chu Wicked.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the garage. Gerald here with you, of course, and the Critics' Choice Awards aired this evening. I was filming a live reaction to that, and my camera crapped out. It seems that my camera and I may share a brain, or at least have the same taste in movies. I did want to do a reaction for you guys with some of the biggest surprises of the night from the CCA, and the implications as we get closer and closer down the road to the Academy Awards on March 2nd. I was going to do like a top 5 list, but I'll just go through these bullet point by bullet point. I won't necessarily touch on the ones that were expected, but there were quite a few head scratchers and surprises and a couple of downright shocks tonight. Everything started out with Conclave winning Best Ensemble, which was my alternate pick, just slightly being edged out by Wicked in my predictions. We know the critics love Conclave. It also received Adapted Screenplay, which was to be expected. I think that's going to be the Adapted Screenplay winner at the Academy Awards, and probably every other screenplay award that's given out for adapted the rest of the season. Ensemble was a minor surprise for Conclave, and it does give it a little bit of strength. Of course, it's missing the Edward Berger for director, which was always a little bit of a chink in its armor. However, as I've said on this channel before, I do think Conclave is going to benefit really at any award show that is eligible for Best Picture, but definitely the Oscars for the preferential balloting system, because it's a movie that most people like on some level. They might not love it and they might not be over the moon about it, but they don't hate it, and they frankly don't even really dislike it. Pretty much everybody I've talked to or watched online or read articles about enjoy in some facet or another Conclave. And it's funny to say, but with the preferential system, a mid movie might end up being the strongest among the nominees, because it's going to get anything from 1 to 4 or 5 on most people's ballots. Those points will be accumulated, and that could be enough to put them over the top. So what I'm going to do as I'm talking about each one of these surprises from the CCAs tonight is I'm going to give you a disrupt meter, what I think the implication might be of that specific win, and if I think it's going to disrupt the Oscar race in any way. In this case, as we're talking about Best Ensemble for Conclave, I will show you what my power rankings currently, and this is pre-CCA, although I don't know that a whole lot is going to change, if I'm being honest with you, except maybe moving Amelia Perez back up a little bit. Holy shit. That video is coming soon. Early next week will be my updated power rankings, and I hope to include some of the bottom of the line categories on that one as well. I don't know if I'll get around to all 23 categories, but I'm going to start adding some to the mix a little bit at a time. So I came up with a 5-point scale. 1 is basically no change. So that's where this is actually going to fall, the Conclave win for Ensemble. Now, had it been Conclave for Best Picture, which we'll get there when that award was handed out at the end of the evening, then it would have been a little bit higher. The scale is going to go from basically no change to 5, which is RIP, or rest in peace, which means the race is completely changed. I don't know that there were any that were like that tonight, even though there were a couple of shocks that happened throughout the evening tonight, and we'll talk about them. I think the Conclave Ensemble win was really cool. It was my alternate pick. I definitely thought they were going to give it to Wicked, especially considering some other things that they gave Wicked tonight. What they taketh and what they give. Is that how it goes? In looking at my current power rankings for supporting actress, which has been kind of a weird category all season, but definitely as of late because of the Amelia Perez controversy, specifically around Carla Sofia Gasson, and I understand that. As I talked about on my Critics' Choice predictions video, the timeline of events would reflect that the controversy would have no bearing on what we saw tonight, because voting ended well before the controversy broke. With that being said, your winner was Zoe Saldana for Best Supporting Actress for Amelia Perez. While I've been extremely vocal about my dislike of the film, I do think Zoe is really good in it, and honestly, I probably should have predicted her to win for this, but I was holding out a hunch, and honestly kind of taking into consideration what the Critics' Choice typically goes for in the past, and Wicked seemed like their cup of tea. So I thought along with an award like Ensemble, it would also possibly get Supporting Actress for Ariana Grande, and that's what I predicted. However, Zoe was my alternate, and I'm not extremely shocked by her win, although what I do think the win implicates, and I'm going to actually put it at a 3 on the disrupt meter in the Supporting Actress race, which would be a modest disruption, at least for me in my predictions, because like I said, I have Ariana Grande at number 1 currently in my power rankings. However, with the results from the Critics' Choice, not only may I update my power rankings and switch them, which then, of course, depending on what happens at SAG, I may switch them back. I mean, who knows? This awards season is fucking wild, guys. But another big reason why I think it's a little higher on that disrupt meter is because everyone in the industry that's anyone, especially if you're voting in the Oscars, the most prestigious award show in the world, you're paying attention to what's happening on the awards circuit. So Zoe Saldana, and it wasn't the only award Emilia Perez won tonight, winning here, even though the controversy is removed from the equation because of when the results were cast, it's still happening live on television in the middle of the controversy before they've started voting, and I mean the Academy, which that voting opens in a few days. And they just saw her win for that. They saw her give another emotional speech for it, very similar to the one she gave at the Golden Globes, very genuine, very authentic. And like I said, I mean, even though I hate the film, it is a really good performance, and she's a beloved actress. Them seeing that win tonight, coupled with the Golden Globes, coupled with a level of sympathy I'm picking up on from fellow industry members and people that were there tonight, that they were supportive of Saldana, not only when she won, but prior to that, being there, going through kind of this tragedy around the film that she's so proud of. So I think there may be a level of she's not part of the controversy. She's not part of the problem. And of course she's not. I actually agree with that. But I thought the residual effects of the controversy may affect other awards, such as her Supporting Actress eventual win. And if you go back and look at any of my older prediction videos, you'll see I was actually saying that I thought Saldana was going to sweep the season, but then I changed it because of the narrative around Ariana Grande and how she was kind of rising in the momentum, and also the controversy. And that really affected me to where I was like, I wouldn't be able to vote for anything with Emilia Perez next to it, even though I love Saldana. But I don't know if that's going to be the case. And them seeing what they saw at the Critics' Choice Awards tonight, along with the Globes and just her in general, Saldana, I think they have a level of permission in the industry. They probably think to themselves, we can vote for her if we want to. We can vote for that film if we want to, whether it's score or costumes or whatever. We can vote for it if we think it's the best because the CCA is doing it. The Globes did it. If we're not voting for Carla Sofia Gasson, the person that made those remarks, that's the outlier, not the film, not Ayudar, not Saldana. I'm not saying I believe that necessarily. I don't really know what I believe. I'm fucking lost. But I do think that's why it's number 3 on my disrupt meter, because it could hurt Ariana Grande pretty badly. If Saldana goes on to win Supporting Actress at SAG, which I currently have her predicted to do, rest in peace, Ariana Grande. I just don't know how she could come back from that, because that would be 3 major precursors, only excluding the BAFTAs really, of 3 probably really exceptional emotional speeches for an actress that is well loved in Hollywood. I think I'm going to wait. I'll update my power rankings next week. I'm going to wait till the SAGs. But as I'm sitting here right this second, I think her winning, even though it was to be expected by a lot of people, I think her winning really disrupts the race, more so for Ariana Grande and for people like me that were pulling for Grande or predicting her to win. Zoe Saldana could be on her way. She could be getting the broom out. While we are on the subject of Emilia Perez, let's go ahead and discuss foreign language film, which that movie also won. Emilia Perez, I mean. Prior to the controversy, everyone and their mother, myself included, was predicting Emilia Perez to win International Feature at the Oscars with virtually no competition. Not because we wanted it to win, and I definitely did not, but I don't think the majority of predictors did either, but more so because of the 13 nominations, the other wins that it's been accumulating on the circuit since late last year, and just the overall narrative that the industry is in love with this film that's kind of a mystery to people like me who did not like it. However, I'm still here from Brazil, specifically Rose Up. My people in Brazil know what I'm talking about. and it burst onto the scene. Not only is it in that international feature category, which was to be expected, myself and hundreds of other pundits predicted that, but I don't think there's anybody on the planet. I think I saw Gold Derby, there was 4 people that predicted it to be in Best Picture, which I don't know how you predicted that. I'm so glad that it's there, but that was the shock of Oscars nominations morning, was I'm Still Here for Best Picture. So the Best Picture nomination, not only for Emilia Perez, but also for I'm Still Here, 2 international films that looked like they were going to battle it out. Much like my logic earlier with Zoe Saldana, I feel like it winning foreign language film, which is basically international film, they 2 different things, but they call them 2 different things, but they're essentially the same thing. When it won that, again, they have a pass now. Or I'm asking, are they going to think that? So the Academy voter is going to think, oh, I can vote for Emilia Perez in international. I love that movie. It's a French film about the Mexican culture. It was submitted by France. What are we doing? What are we doing, Academy? And frankly, what are we doing, Critics' Choice Association? You had an opportunity to award I'm Still Here from Brazil for that, which would have given it a huge boost in the international feature race for the Academy, which is why I'm giving this one a 3 also on the disrupt meter, which is a modest disruption in this race for international at the Oscars. I had moved I'm Still Here to number 1 in my power rankings in that category, and I actually moved it up really highly in my Best Picture power rankings as well. It currently sits at number 5 pre-Critics' Choice, and that was with Emilia Perez dropping down because of the controversy, not only in international but also in Best Picture. But if the Academy feels like they have a pass because the industry is saying we can award this film, we're just not going to basically acknowledge Carla Sofia Gascon. Demi Moore actually said her name on stage tonight during her Best Actress win. When she was giving her speech, she thanked all the nominees, including Gascon, which is fine. I think that's great. But Alyadar didn't mention her. Zoe Saldana didn't mention her. None of the producers mentioned her. I don't even think they mentioned her during the broadcast, with the exception of her image and likeness when she was in the nominee clip. So they're obviously trying to distance themselves from the black sheep, from the issue. And if they do that successfully, Emilia Perez could rise back in the ranks. Of my rankings, yes, but I mean of the Oscar voters' mentality. Voting opens in like 3 or 4 days. It just happened at the Critics' Choice where it won some pretty big awards, including Saldana. So why wouldn't they vote for it? Drop it in the comments if you think the controversy is going to affect their vote, or if it's going to be a non-issue, unless you're talking about Gascon, because I think that might be where we are right now. I have never understood the love for Emilia Perez, even prior controversy. I definitely don't understand it with the controversy on top of it, but I think we might be back in a situation when I update my power rankings in a couple days. My head is going to hurt because I'm going to have to take that red arrow that I was so happy to put next to Emilia Perez and put the damn green arrow next to it. I think that could be a disruption in the international feature, because had that gone to I'm Still Here, that would have been a huge victory for that film, because it doesn't have a lot of stage time between now and the Oscars. The Globes had that beautiful Fernanda Torres win. Fast forward a couple weeks, we're sitting here at the CCA, which is really the next big televised precursor. How awesome would it have been if it won in foreign language film at the Critics' Choice Awards to go with that Globe victory? We don't have that now. What we have is more stuff for Emilia Perez. And frankly, I'm pissed. I don't know why the critics did that and didn't give it to a film like I'm Still Here, or even All We Imagine Is Light, which is actually what I predicted, because I thought the CCA might try to make up for the fact that India did not submit it for the Oscar. And because of that, it wasn't able to get into international at the Oscars. But not only that, it didn't get nominated anywhere else. I think it may have gotten 1 nomination at the Academy Awards. If that, I can't remember. So we had an opportunity to recognize something else. Regardless of the controversy, Emilia Perez is getting recognized. It got 13 nominations. It's going to win something. I'm just disappointed. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Next, I will touch on probably the biggest holy shit moment of the night for me. Had my camera not stopped working, I think I said holy shit. John M. Chu winning for Best Director for Wicked. Now, there's a couple reasons why this was shocking, is because prior to that victory, they hated Wicked. It was losing everything. It did win production design, and it did win costumes when they did those little offshoots where they showed the title card of the different winners that weren't on stage. Those were ones I predicted. Those were to be expected. It lost out in ensemble, which I mentioned. Obviously, Ariana Grande lost to Saldana. It did stand a pretty good chance in makeup, but it did not win that either. I think the front runner there was The Substance, which actually did end up winning. And it was also considered to be in the top 3 or so in terms of possible wins in visual effects, which I'm kind of glad it didn't win that one because I've been a vocal opponent of like the colors and the holy shit. I'm dizzy from watching this. Even though I liked it, it was just way too over the top in terms of the color palette. So really, aside from the 2 expected feats of the technical awards that Wicked had when you're talking about production design and costumes, it underperformed really badly because at least from my perception, because I was expecting it to show up big tonight, not only to get those techs, but for Ariana to win and for it to win Best Ensemble or Picture, one or the other. I thought Ensemble made a little more sense and there was a little less competition in that category. I didn't think it was going to win both, though, but I thought it was going to get one of those, and of course it did not. But then come along to Best Director, and there's 8 nominees for some reason, which I'm sure there is a reason. I just don't know what it is. I'm not in the CCA, but that seems like a lot. But you had big players that are Oscar frontrunners like Brady Corbet, Sean Baker, Edward Berger was in this category, so there could have been some love lost made up there. Of course, they didn't know he wasn't going to make the Oscar noms at the time, but Ramel Ross, Nickel Boys, was extremely loved by critics, and that came up empty-handed tonight as well, including for screenplay, of course, because of the frontrunner conclave. But then you had these 2 musicals there among this group of directors, Jock Ayoudard for Emilia Perez and John M. Chu for Wicked. And I'm sitting there telling myself when they're calling it, I'm saying to myself, and I think I said on the video, don't be Jock Ayoudard. Do not say Jock Ayoudard. Do not. And they say John, they say John. I'm like, and John M. Chu comes out of their mouth. And I didn't even register because I was like thrilled that it wasn't Jock Ayoudard that was uttered. But then as he's walking up the stage and I'm letting it sink in, I'm going, John M. Chu? Where am I? I mean, you had Coralie Farja in there. We'll talk a little bit about screenplay here in a second for her. Sean Baker. I mentioned Brady Corbet, who was my predicted winner. Denis Villeneuve, who was my personal favorite director of the year for Dune Part 2. And we gave it to John M. Chu, which, I mean, he's a cool dude. I loved his speech, and like I said, I like Wicked. But why? They didn't award it anything else. It frankly doesn't make sense. It's very weird. It's going to only be a 1 on the Disrupt meter because he's not nominated for the Academy Award. So it told us nothing from an Oscars prediction standpoint. We have no more information to go on. So what it's going to come down to now is really the PGA and the DGA and possibly BAFTA, depending on what happens there, because that could also end up being somebody that's not nominated for the Oscar, a la Edward Berger, which actually I think is probably who I would predict. So honestly, we might have very little precursors to go on going into the Oscars for Best Director. As you see my power rankings here on the screen, I'll throw them up for you. I still have Brady Corbet at number 1. Now, this is all before the Critics' Choice Awards, but I'm not going to change that because John M. Chu's not in that race. So Coralie Farja won Original Screenplay, which may help her a little bit in the power rankings. But for me, I think it's still, I had dropped Jock Ayoudard down. I don't know what to do with this controversy, guys. I really don't know what to do with this scandal. I don't. I just do not. It's unprecedented. I don't know what to do. They love him. He's a very well-loved French filmmaker. It's an international voting body, or heavily international voting body, at least compared to previous iterations of the Academy. So I don't know what to do. I dropped Ayoudard all the way down, but now I feel like I have to move him back up because I feel like I said earlier with Saldana, I feel like they're going to be able to separate the art that, from the person that is separate from the 100 people that worked on the movie. And I'm not even saying I disagree with that logic. I'm just saying I don't know how to predict for that. I don't know what they're going to think. I'm trying to go on what I would think, but I'm not an Academy voter. So I'm just a film lover. Anyway, John M. Chu winning is not going to get anything on the Disrupt meter, but it also is a little frustrating because it tells us nothing about the Best Director race. So for that reason, Brady Corbet has the Golden Globe. As I'm recording this, the DGA is being announced tomorrow. I'm going to have a friend of mine on, Sivan, to talk about all 3 of these things that happened this weekend and what that's going to do to impact the race. But right now, as I'm sitting here, only going on the Critics' Choice, when it comes to Best Director, it didn't help us at all. I mean, great for John Chu, but that was the weirdest win of the night because nothing leading up to that moment, and I'm going to talk about this with another category too, nothing leading up to the moment they said his name. Even if I was making predictions in real time, I would have never said it's about to be John Chu. Nothing told me that prior to them announcing it, or prior to the award show. Nothing all season. I mean, with the exception of him getting in places that we didn't think he would, but I mean, it's not like he's won those yet. So good for John Chu, but man, that was a strange win, and it's not going to affect the Oscars race really in any way whatsoever. Now, when it comes to original screenplay, my girl Coralie Farja for The Substance won that, which was predicted by some, but I think most people thought that was probably going to go to either Sean Baker or possibly a sleeper pick, Jesse Eisenberg, for A Real Pain. Those were the two that I chose. I chose Baker to win this outright, with Eisenberg as a close second. But it actually went to Coralie, and it's a body horror sci-fi script, a genre film, and it's a weird genre film. And it won original screenplay. Now, of course, this is among the critics who did like the movie, but I think that the disrupt meter on this one is actually pretty substantial. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on the disrupt meter at a 4, which is watch out. You're on watch, and that's for Sean Baker, really, if I'm being honest, and possibly Jesse Eisenberg, because there's 2 races that I feel like that could affect. It could affect the Best Director race, and it could also affect Best Original Screenplay. Just because I think most people, myself included, thought Sean Baker was going to get that screenplay trophy, regardless of what happened with Anora on a larger scale, because a lot of people think Conclave or The Brutalist and maybe Wicked are like a little higher in the probability of getting those illustrious Best Picture awards. But the screenplay, I thought everybody was pretty safe with, like, yeah, Sean Baker's going to get that. So Coralie Farja winning this tonight disrupts that race a little bit for original screenplay, because the Critics' Choice Awards have a knack for predicting what the Academy may do in the future. They saw it. Now, if you love The Substance and you're an Academy member, you may be somewhat reluctant to vote for it because of the type of film that it is. Let's be honest, it is not an Academy-friendly movie. That's one of the reasons I love it, to be honest, but it's just not that. It's not something that I would think the majority of the Academy would watch and say, let's vote for that. That's my favorite screenplay. I love that shit. But it winning tonight might mix that up a little bit. And I also think that it might move her up in the power rankings for director as well, because John Chu winning in director did nothing for the other dudes that were nominated tonight, I mean. And I'm specifically talking about Corbet and Baker, which were thought to be the 1-2 punch for the most part. Coralie Farja got stage time. She got up there. She made a speech. It was for screenplay, but she had a beautiful speech. And she talked about wanting to do it since she was a little girl. And it was an empowering moment. And it was an awesome moment for genre films and for her and for everybody involved with The Substance. And people saw that. They also saw John Chu, but guess what? They can't vote for John Chu. So I'm saying that of course I don't know, but I'm saying that it could disrupt 2 separate races, original screenplay and director, based on the impact that her speech, her FaceTime, and the fact that she was able to win with that body with such a weird, frankly, disgusting, off-the-wall script. And she won it, and she beat mammoths like Brady Corbet, who I thought was going to sweep, if I'm being honest with you. But she came in, she upset, and I couldn't be happier. I love it. I had her at my number 3 in my predictions, but I don't care. Man, that is so good that she won that, and I think it could mess with a couple races. The other big shocker that I frankly don't know where to put on the disrupt meter is Anora winning for Best Picture. Let's talk about it. I predicted, if you're looking at my predictions, you'll see that I predicted Anora to win, so why is that a shocker? They hated it all night long. I was losing all night long. We just talked about Baker losing for screenplay. Mikey Madison lost to Demi Moore. I predicted Mikey. It looks like the Demi Moore sweep is in full effect. Obviously, Yuri Borisov did not win either for supporting actor. It was in the running for things and pretty high on people's predictions for like editing, which, by the way, went to challengers. I'm gonna talk about that in a second. It was also up for that ensemble award that ended up going to Conclave, and there's that group of 4 movies, right, for the Best Picture hunt for the Oscars. There's like that group of 4 that are kind of battling it out, really. It's Anora, The Brutalist, Conclave, and Wicked. It's those 4, I think, that are kind of like fighting for that trophy. And then you do have some dark horse wildcards in there too, like I'm Still Here and A Complete Unknown. But we'll have to see how those particular films perform going forward, because they didn't have a lot of action tonight, or didn't have the opportunity to have a lot of action tonight. Anora winning Best Picture at the CCAs was a big deal when it happened. Of course I predicted it. So you're probably going, why are you surprised? It didn't, there was no precursor during the event as I was watching it. I was actually deflated. Friends of mine will tell you, if you watch my channel, you probably know. But aside from Nosferatu, Anora has been the movie I've been like lifting up during award season. Like, please give it something on television so that we can put it in the race officially. You know what I mean? Because it's not going to, it might be in the conversation, but it's not in the race unless you're visible to the Academy voters while they're voting or before they vote. They were basically shitting on it all night. And then we get to the biggest award of the night, which is right after Brody wins for The Brutalist, right after Demi Moore wins for The Substance, both of which were pretty expected, although I didn't predict them because I don't know. I went out on a limb with Mikey Madison finally getting her foot in the door, and then I thought Coleman Domingo would carry his critics' love that he's been getting all season to the CCA, and frankly, I don't know why they didn't vote for Coleman Domingo. I mean, he's been winning every critics award under the sun, and then we get to the national critics, and he just doesn't win it. I know it's crazy, and I think it's because they didn't think, and of course I don't know because it's a broader abstract mentality to a whole voting body, but overall I think they didn't think that Coleman Domingo could win the Oscar, so they didn't vote for him for the CCAs. But then you have a victory like John M. Chu. It's just the weirdest like mentality, and I don't know why. I don't know why, because Courbet didn't win director. The film didn't win in picture or ensemble, but it won for Brody, which was pretty basic, honestly, pretty vanilla. So the whole voting body's got me a little freaked out when Anora won Best Picture, even though that was what I wanted and that was what I predicted. It winning at the CCAs, I don't think really does much to disrupt the race, though. I'm putting it at a 2 on the disrupt meter. The only reason I'm really putting it for any disruption is because as we're sitting here, I have it at number 2 in my power rankings, and I have The Brutalist at number 1. I don't think Anora leapfrogs The Brutalist with just the one victory tonight, even though it was Best Picture. Now, if Anora had won Picture and Mikey Madison and Screenplay by Sean Baker, then that would probably be my number 1 prediction currently for the Best Picture Oscar. But it just won that one award, which is super strange because that means it got the majority of votes across 10 films that were nominated, but it didn't get some of these lesser competitive awards with only 5 nominees that were basically at least favorites or like number 2s in those categories. I am so glad that it won, though, because that is a lifeline for that movie. It was on life support. And I am being honest with you, and I actually said this on my reaction video that I didn't know was not filming at the time, that Anora was dead. I think I said that on my video as I was watching various awards leading up to Picture. I think I said it when Demi Moore won. I just thought Anora was done. I didn't think the critics were going to give it anything, which is frankly a shame. I do not get it. If you're a critic and you're watching this, we're letting these movies down, guys. I'm just telling you. We are letting these films down that we praised and lauded up and lifted and shouted out to the world. And then we turn around and, you know, on the national stage with the TV cameras on, we don't do it. It's just really weird to me. It's a very strange amalgamation of what we got with the winners tonight, because I was talking with a friend of mine afterwards. I was chatting with her and I was saying, like, they gave everything something. Because I told you those 4 movies that I feel like are like really in the hunt for Best Picture. All of them got something pretty big tonight. You know, I mean, John Chu got director for Wicked. Conclave got ensemble. Coralie Farshad got screenplay. Anora got Best Picture. Amelia Perez, you know, got some pretty big awards tonight. The Brutalist got Adrian Brody. I mean, you know, it was like everybody got something to where it was like the playing field is still level. The ball hasn't moved from the 50-yard line. I mean, what are we doing? Who's going to score this? Who's going to pick it up and run it in for the touchdown? I mean, that's where we are right now, you know, and I think it's going to be something like momentum or narrative. And Demi Moore is a great example of that narrative. I mean, she's going to ride that now. I feel horrible for Mikey Madison. That's been my girl, man. That has been my number 1. And I'm a horror fanatic. I'm in love with the fact that The Substance is getting the attention that it's getting. But I think that award should go to Mikey from acting performance, I mean. And I just don't know how far she may have gotten set back, because I don't see how she gets in the race now, the televised race. Where's she going to win at? You know, where's she going to get on stage at? You know, SAG, BAFTA. I mean, I don't see that. I don't see it. You know, they could surprise me. Screen Actors Guild could surprise me, but you're also talking about an actress in Demi Moore who has been acting for nearly 50 years, and these are all her peers that know that, first of all, and then have heard her talking about that on the tour. I don't see her losing at SAG. So now it's like, Mikey Madison's just happy to have the nomination is kind of what it feels like. But them giving Nora Best Picture breathed a little bit of life into what is a narrow path to Best Picture for Nora. It would need probably the editing award, which frankly I had it in first place for editing. Sean Baker edits his own films, which they may like that a lot. Ty West does that too, another filmmaker that edits his own films. These guys are crazy. I mean, hire editors is insane. I don't know how they do it. So I've got Sean Baker winning that original screenplay at the Oscars, but I've also got it winning editing as well. That went to Challengers here, which I loved. I'm going to talk about that real quick. Challengers is not nominated at the Academy Awards. So honestly, it's going to be a Nora or The Brutalist. I would be shocked if it weren't one of the two of those winning for editing on Oscars night. And I've mentioned this before, but whoever wins editing early in the night, watch out. Like that has got a high likelihood to cross over to Best Picture, especially if you pick up director or screenplay or hell both, then you're really in it to win it. So if a Nora can win editing on Oscars night, and if it can somehow win screenplay for Sean Baker, then it would be Best Picture, in my opinion. But that's the path, because I don't think Baker's going to win director. But definitely, if he won that, then we know that's our Best Picture. So it would essentially have to win everything that is up for it, except for Mikey Madison and Borisov, except for the acting. It's a long shot, let's put it that way. And you have The Brutalist with 10 nominations. You have Wicked with 10 nominations. You have Conclave with like 8. Emilia Perez with 13. A Complete Unknown with 10. So Nora is on the bottom in terms of the chances that they have across various bodies of the Academy to get to that Best Picture stage. But there is still hope. Let's just say that way. I've still got The Brutalist in my power rankings because, frankly, the Critics' Choice Awards didn't really tell us anything for Best Picture or Best Director. Now, the PGAs and the DGAs are coming out in like 24 hours as I'm sitting here. 17 out of the last 23 years or something like that. The PGA winner for Best Picture has also been the Oscar winner for Best Picture. So it's only missed like 6 times out of the last 23 since the year 2000. That's a good stat. That, of course, doesn't happen every time. Coda is probably the most recent. I mean, it doesn't happen every time. But if you win that PGA award, you can hold your head high on Oscars night that you have at least a really good shot. So Nora won at the CCA, right? What if it wins PGA tomorrow? As you're watching this, it might be over. Maybe it did. I don't know. That would be huge. So we'll see what happens. I'm pulling for a Nora, but I think The Brutalist and, frankly, Conclave have an easier path now, and that's even without the Edward Berger nomination. It's just going to be, in other words, a Nora can't miss. It can't miss on Oscars night. It can't miss editing. It can't miss screenplay. It really can't afford to miss both acting categories. It needs one of those, but I don't think it's going to get it. So it's got to play like a perfect game on Oscars night. And I'm not saying it can't, but it's just less likely. And then I just want to touch on a couple of things that were probably a little more obvious from the Critics' Choice Awards, but Adrian Brody winning for Best Actor and Demi Moore for Best Actress. I now think that we're looking at a sweep for Demi Moore, and I've kind of already touched on that a little bit. I don't see the Screen Actors Guild not embracing that narrative, and I hate when it comes down to something other than the performances that we're gauging, but I think it does in this case, and it is a wonderful narrative, don't get me wrong. I think she sweeps. I think she's going to be my number one prediction until Oscars night. And I think if she loses, which would preferably be to Mikey Madison, I will be shocked. It's possible that I could cry. It's possible that I could break my laptop if I'm recording a reaction, because I will be so ecstatic. But it would also be a shocking, holy shit surprise at this point. I don't see Demi Moore losing. Adrian Brody winning for Best Actor. I'm sticking with Timothée Chalamet for now because I think Timmy's the front runner for the SAG. So Critics' Choice went to Brody, which I was hoping that would go to Coleman Domingo, because then we would have a John Chu situation where it didn't affect the race, but that didn't happen, and Brody got another little tick on his sheet there. So I think Timmy has to win SAG. And I told you guys, if Brody gets 3 trophies on his mantle, I'll switch my prediction. So if Brody ends up winning the Screen Actors Guild Award, I will take Timmy out of my top spot at that point. But right now, I'm predicting Timmy to win that SAG, and if he does, and then we also have the BAFTA result, don't forget, which I haven't done those predictions yet, so I can't really speak on what I'm thinking there. But if Timmy can win SAG, he has a chance with the Academy. If he doesn't win SAG, Brody's going to sweep. That's what I think. A couple things I loved the most tonight from the critics, which they didn't do a lot to make me proud tonight, but the Coralie Farja win was huge for screenplay. I also love that Challengers won both major categories that it was in, Best Editing and Best Score. both of which I predicted. I was also scared that they might not do it, the CCA, but they did. So thank you, Critics' Choice, for that. It was awesome that Challengers is finally getting some notoriety, especially that score. Easily. I mean, with an absolute 3 million miles an hour bullet, one of the best scores of the year. But unfortunately, it's just not an Academy score. So we knew it wasn't going to get nominated there. And if it did, there was no way it was going to win. So I'm frankly thrilled that that showed up tonight and got some love, as well as editing, because it's a very frantically edited film, wonderfully shot, keeps you super engaged. The editing is a star in that movie, and if it's not edited that way to keep you, then you're not going to be into it like I was. So I love those wins tonight. The only thing I just want to mention, the last thing I have in my notes here, is that when Anora did win Best Picture and Sean Baker and the cast got up there, let Mikey speak. Mikey Madison got no time in front of the camera, no time on the microphone. I'm sure she did interviews backstage or whatever that'll hopefully come out. But Baker, man, I mean, I know it's your movie. I know you wrote it and like edited it, and like I love you. I'm proud of you, man. It's a great film, but she's Anora. That's your star. I don't know if you know, bro, but the reason you won Best Picture at the Critics' Choice Awards is because the critics love Mikey Madison's performance. If you didn't have the dedication and the commitment that you got from your lead actress like you did from her, you would not have been on that stage. And I am glad that you won, like I said a minute ago. I wish we would have given the titular Anora, Annie, some screen time, because much like Fernanda Torres at the Globes, we're not going to be able to hear from her again the whole season. And now Mikey Madison not winning at the CCA, when will we hear from her on stage? Possibly not at all. That's a bummer, man. Like, let her talk for like 30 seconds about what it meant to her to be in the movie, or like, and that would have helped her actress run too, I think. But now that's not a factor. So that kind of bummed me out a little bit. Guys, I'm sorry my live stream did not work. I was recording it and I was watching it on a separate monitor, and Zoe won, and I'm like, here we go, and I was a little shaken by the ensemble to begin with, even though I like Conclave. And then Zoe Saldana won, and I'm like, oh God, it's starting. My head hurts. And I watched like another hour of it, and I went back and my thing had stopped recording. I don't even know when. When I played it back, I realized it was like while she was giving her speech. Like I said, my camera was probably like, you know what? F this. We're not doing this. I can't film all these Amelia Perez victories. So I'm sorry that didn't work out, but I hope you enjoyed this reaction video. I'll splice it together and get it out as soon as possible. And then I'm going to have like I said, I'm going to have my friend from Oscars Obsession on, and we're going to talk about all these major bodies turning in their winners, because it's not only the Critics' Choice, but we also are getting the DGA and the PGA, which in my opinion is the big one. We'll talk about this more on our stream, but if whatever wins PGA can smile, especially if it's Brutalist, Anora, Conclave, or Wicked, or a complete unknown, frankly. If any of those win PGA, they could be on their way. Stay tuned. We'll talk about it. Make sure you subscribe so you can check out that live stream. It'll probably be Saturday night late, but we will do that late on the East Coast, and we will do that. We'll talk about all these implications for the Academy Awards race. What did you guys think of the Critics' Choice Awards tonight? I'll tell you what, down in the comments, why don't you tell me what your favorite win of the night was? Was it something you weren't expecting, or did one of your predictions come true and it just made you so happy? For me, it would probably be Coralie Farja for screenplay or Challengers for score. I think those two, I just felt something inside when those two things happened, especially Farja, because I did not expect that. I had her at my number 3. I didn't think they would give her that. So that was awesome. If Mikey Madison had won, I would not have been able to film this video. I would still be floating in the clouds above my house, but she didn't, so here we are. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys out here next time in the garage.